Hafaday and welcome. The Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture is now called to order. Today is June 10, 2022, and the time is 10:27 a.m. Thank you so much for your patience and for waiting with us this morning and for being here today. In compliance with the open government law, notices for this public hearing were published in the Guam Daily Post and the Government of Guam Public Notice Portal on Friday, June 3rd and Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. This hearing is being live streamed via the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel. Public notices were also disseminated via email to all senators and main media broadcasting outlets. The rules for today are simply, first, wait for the chair to recognize you, and please begin by stating your name for the record. Senators present today will be given an opportunity at the end of all of the testimony to ask questions or make comments. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues, Senator Joanne Brown and Senator Terlaje this morning. Thank you, colleagues. Today we have one agenda item, and that is the appointment of Earl J. Garrido to serve as a member of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission for a term length of 3 years from April 11, 2021 to April 10, 2024, to fill the term of Austin Duenas, whose term has expired. I'm sorry, I need to clarify that. To fill the seat of Austin Duenas, whose term has expired. Okay. All right. Mr. Garrido, I want to thank you for accepting this appointment to serve as a trustee of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. And thanks to all of you who are here today to provide testimony in this regard. I'd just like to, for the record, state a couple items regarding the CHamoru Land Trust Commission itself. Of course, this commission was established by law in 1975, but that was by then the late Senator Paul Bordallo, and the act was not implemented until about 20 years afterward, after Nacion Chamorro, under the leadership of Difunto Senator Angel Santos, Difunto Magalahi Ed Beneventi, and their wives, and many others, led an education and advocacy campaign urging the governor at that time to implement the trust. There was a lawsuit filed on behalf of Angel Santos and the Chamorro Nation to compel implementation of the act. A decision was made in 1992 that the law was valid and ordered the governor to implement the act and appoint the first commissioners. So that happened after 1992. In 1995, when Angel Santos was a senator, he introduced the rules and regulations for the trust, which was again led by hundreds appearing before the legislature to urge lawmakers to adopt the rules, which was done, and those are the rules with very few amendments that we are operating under today. And as you know, the CHamoru Land Trust has been sued in the past couple years and has settled, and in the settlement has established additional criteria for eligibility of applicants, or just pretty much restated the eligibility, and the intent was to expand the eligibility of for the applicants for the trust. The CHamoru Land Trust Commission is responsible for the disposition of Chamorro homelands pursuant to mandates to advance the social, cultural, and economic development and well-being of the people of Guam by way of residential, agricultural, and commercial land distribution and economic assistance programs. It's the Commission's mission to carry on any activities necessary to inform and assist in obtaining maximum utilization of lands, including development of lands for their highest and best use in all phases of residential and agricultural leasing and commercial licensing. For the record, we've received written testimony in support of the appointment of Mr. Garrido from the former governor and current president and CEO of the Guam Visitors Bureau, Carl T. C. Gutierrez, from Dennis Manabusan, retired colonel, U.S. Air Force, and retired president of Air Transport International, Inc., from Angela Mummert, from Frank J. Pangilinan, principal broker of Laddystone Properties, LLC, all right. And now we will allow those who want to present testimony to go first, and the nominee to end that testimony. So first we've got Mr. Brown. Can you state your full name for the record? Mike Brown, I guess. Mike Brown.
Mike Brown. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and distinguished senators. Thank you for receiving my strong recommendation for Mr. Earl Garrido to be selected to fill the current vacant commissioner position opening on the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I've known Earl Garrido for over 40 years. He is a close and personal friend who always stays focused on, above all else, doing the right thing. Earl is careful and deliberative in all that he does, and I suspect that's due in large part to his 3+ decades spent successfully working for the Guam Power Authority. He began as a junior electrical engineer and ended as GPA's manager of power systems control. Earl Garrido is a native Chamorro who cares deeply about Guam and Guam's people. He is today a licensed real estate agent on island who recognizes that not all of Guam's local population has land to live on. Considering real estate prices today, but for the CLTC, Earl knows that many people living on island just can't afford to acquire Guam land. I know that Earl Garrido will keep this dynamic in mind as he serves on this critically important Government of Guam Commission. Earl Garrido's past experiences, current knowledge about real estate on island, and his love for the people and the place that is Guam all make him such a good and attractive candidate to serve on the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I hope that you and your legislative colleagues agree and that you vote to confirm Mr. Earl Garrido to serve as the CHamoru Land Trust, to serve on the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. If I could just acknowledge the presence of one of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission members, Angela Santos, and also the acting director, Angela Camacho. All right, and now we proceed with testimony from El Mao, is that correct? Okay. All right, is there anyone else who'd like to present testimony before Mr. Garrido? Acting Director? Acting Director Angela Camacho of the CHamoru Land Trust.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Senators. I'm here to give oral testimony in support of Earl Garrido in his appointment as Commissioner for CHamoru Land Trust. I've known Mr. Garrido for quite some time. We have familial relationships, and I believe he'll be a good add to our team in filling the last position on the commission, on the board. Mr. Garrido has a wealth of knowledge in infrastructure, which I think is highly important for us today, as well as his knowledge in real estate. So I hope you'll consider him and support his nomination, and we look forward to having him join us on the board.
Thank you, Director. Anyone else? Commissioner Angela Santos.
Test. Buenas and half a day, Honorable Speaker Terlaje and Honorable Senators Guausi Angela Santos. I am the acting chairperson at this time. Sanamasi for giving me the opportunity to share some information with the newly appointed commissioner para y comisión inangokutano CHamoru. When I was appointed in 2022, there were 3 members on the commission, to include the newly appointed and confirmed chairman. So for a few months, we had an almost full board. I would like to thank our Magahaga Lu and Segundu Magalahi Josh for keeping the commitment they made for the Land Trust Commission to thrive in the situation that we were in with the litigation against the Land Trust, deeming it a race-based program, to appoint members in a considerably timely manner for the board to execute actions needed to proceed with the distribution of leases to over our 11,000 applicants waiting and deal with all the other situations in between. They are dying off in line. They're angry. They're disappointed. When unethical decisions are made for self-gain or for one's familial benefits, it is important that every member of the commission possess ethical standards. And even though the pay is not at all anywhere near adequate for the work and time that we give, it's about the love for our people and the land that was unjustly taken away decades ago from our ancestors. The law and the rules and regulations that were enacted at the time do not fit this day and age. With everything and whoever had their hands in unethical procedures, they made it very difficult to operate, because we are seeing cases that have been approved and are not within the guidelines of the law. There are many other things that we are experiencing right now that the commission has been tackling in our once-a-month meeting. We have a long road ahead of us, Mr. Garrido. I thank you for putting your hat in the ring to assist with our dearly beloved CHamoru Land Trust program to be distributed to our people who have been waiting and who continue to wait. Your expertise in real estate will be very beneficial. This edition gives us a full commission, and with more minds to have dialogue about how we need to move forward in actions that we take, I appreciate the extra hand. The responsibilities are enormous, and the tasks are tedious. We as the commission members have our main mission: to exemplify our virtues of integrity and honesty, to upkeep the standards placed upon us by defunto Senator Paul Berdalio, defunto Senator Angel Santos, and defunto Speaker Ben Pangilinan. These virtues will carry us as a body to secure the integral distribution of land to our people who have no land in a day where prices are rising in every area of needing to survive. We must secure the restoration process in order for us as an island community to thrive and prosper, to situate the rules and regulations of standard operating procedures, to review law and act accordingly. Just going to read a little excerpt from the code, if you don't mind. 6102, the commission. The mission of the trustees. The commission members as trustees shall, 1, act exclusively in the interest of beneficiaries under the act. 2, hold and protect the trust property for beneficiaries under the act. 3, maintain and uphold their fiduciary responsibilities to the beneficiaries, and exercise such care and skill as a person of ordinary prudence would exercise in dealing with one's own property in the management of CHamoru homelands. And 4, adhere to the terms of the trust as set forth in the act. There are some documents that will get printed out for you just to get you started, to get you familiarized, because when I came in too, I wasn't familiarized with where I needed to go and what I needed to look at and what I needed to familiarize myself with. Of course, the 75A, that was already there.
Please address your comments to the chair.
I'm sorry, please forgive me. If you haven't already, we will be sure to print them out to assist you with your fiduciary duties as a CLTC commissioner. You'll also learn something new every day. Please tread with care. I'm sure that if your heart is in it, you'll be with us for the long haul. Once again, Sanamasi for your willingness to join the CLTC team. Together we can make our ancestors proud by fulfilling the vision that they worked tirelessly with their blood, sweat, and tears. Together we will restore the trust in the CHamoru Land Trust. With that being said, I support Magahagalu and Segundo Magalayi's appointment of Earl Garrido to serve on the CHamoru Land Trust Commission as a commissioner who fills the seat of our outgoing Commissioner Austin Santos from April 11, 2021 to April 10, 2024. Sanamasi for your time and for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of what I have experienced thus far. I hope I didn't scare you, Mr. Garrido. With all due respect, this program means the world to me. My brother sacrificed for our people and for the enactment of the program, along with many others of the Nation Chamorro, as well as numerous other residents who call Guahan home. Please let us not forget why this program exists. Sanamasi.
Sanamasi. And now, Mr. Garrido, if you would like, you're welcome to present testimony.
Thank you, Senators, for giving me the opportunity to speak in this hearing for my confirmation. Let me just give you some background about myself. From my early years, I worked for GPA, started out in the engineering department, and in doing that, I have good grasp of maps and how to design infrastructure for parcels or properties that are to be developed. In '79, I requested a transfer to the SCADA system with GPA. SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. We set up the first real-time data monitoring system for the island-wide power grid. In order to do that, we went to Texas, Houston, Texas, for 6 months to learn the system. After that, we came back, we set up the system down at Cabras Island, right next to the Cabras power plant. We set up the system, we went through 2 generations, and then I got transferred to data processing, the financial management system. I was there until I retired in 2005. And from there, I stayed home. I was a retiree, I stayed home about 3 months, and I just got totally bored. I felt that I needed to give. I still have something to give to the public, and that's why I look forward to the chance of serving the public. But during my boredom period, I decided I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to fall back into that same rut that a lot of GovGuam workers do, where they come back doing the same job, doing the same thing. So that being the case, I became a realtor. All right, I took the classes, I passed the exam, and I was a realtor since 2006 to the present. As a realtor, I learned a lot about zoning and the types of lands available, and a lot of things that are intricate towards real property and the real estate industry and the wants and needs. Let me roll back a little. With GPA, I also learned that there are programs that could contribute towards developing the infrastructure in these land for residential use. As an example, Ted Nelson, he put in the power infrastructure into his house out there in the Mingilao Cliffline area, and the agreement there, which was mutually built up, was that he would pay the initial cost less what his usage would normally cost. And then anybody who would tap into the line would reimburse Mr. Nelson partially for their share of where they're at in the line. So I'm thinking we could do that with the CHamoru Land Trust in conjunction with GPA and also with GWA, so that we can handle the infrastructure. And I spoke with the chairman about 3-4 weeks ago, and he asked me which is more critical, electricity or water? And I said, water. We can live without power, we can't live without water. And that would hold true for residential as well as agricultural, because if you're raising cattle or livestock, you need to take care of their needs with water. And if you're doing residential, you need water in your household for sanitary reasons. Let me just restate that I really want to give back to the community, and that's how I winded up here. But before I came to this situation here, I was with the cockpit board at Revenue and Tax for 2 years. And then after that, about 2 years ago, I was appointed into the Equalization Board at Revenue and Tax, which deals with real property. I'm still a member there until you either confirm my appointment or not. If you confirm my appointment, I will have to submit my resignation for the Equalization Board so I can take on this new task. But that being the case, like I said, I really want to return to the community because I served with the community for 30 plus years. And I know things that would be able to benefit the commission in its endeavor to try and provide the proper services for the people of Guam, whether it be through residential or agricultural or even commercial. I have my own ideas of what we could probably do or try and do. And I understand also that there's a big financial pit that the commission is trying to work through. I'm new, I'm not that well versed with the functions of the commission, but with a little bit of time, I'll be able to be as well versed as all the other board members. With my work in the data processing computer with GPA, we learn how to be very logical and very meticulous about how things get done. I guess that's enough for my spew for my point. Now, I'll be more than willing to answer any questions from the August Board, Senators.
Thank you, Mr. Garrido. Oh, see if any of my colleagues, Senator Taitagui, if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Garrido, for stepping up to the plate. I greatly appreciate your background, too, in stepping into this position with engineering as well as your knowledge of land. It's very important. So it's a perfect fit, if you ask me. And I'm sure you're going to learn much more, like you said. You're anxious to learn more. Doesn't matter how old you are. You're gonna. It's a blessing to learn new stuff. I enjoy it. You know, but passion is something that has to come within. And I think just seeing the testimonies that were provided by other individuals in your favor, I don't know you as they know you, but there's a lot of confidence you have out there from other people. So I'm looking forward to seeing the work that you're going to provide at the CHamoru Land Trust. I greatly appreciate too the fact that you didn't read your testimony. You came here from your heart, your experience, and having that ability to do that and not skipping a beat is very good to me. I was impressed, very impressed. I know that the acting director spoke highly of you. She's known you a lot longer, and especially in the realm of real estate. And by the way, I'd like to congratulate you, the Guam Housing Corporation, on the first 23 first-time owners that were just issued the award. Congratulations to you, Angie, on that. It's a great job. And hopefully things like that will come out of the CHamoru Land Trust for our people who are so desperately in need of beginning of having a home and giving them that foundation to create a family and someplace they can rest their head and be proud to, be a part of this community. So again, thank you so much for your contributions to the community in this capacity, and looking forward to what you can do for this, especially this agency, where many of us here, I know the three of us here, we have a keen interest with the CHamoru Land Trust. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for that praise you just put on me. I know you, but I don't know you personally. I knew your dad more. I've been walking there for 68 years, so.
I do, yeah. He's more popular than I am, my dad. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. Senator Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and certainly to you, Mr. Garrido, for stepping up to the plate on wanting to serve on the Land Trust Commission. There is a lot of work to be done, and I have a small history with the CHamoru Land Trust. When I was back up at the university, we were contracted by CHamoru Land Trust to actually work and assist the land trust in getting a status of its agricultural properties. And this was almost about 12, 13 years ago. And one of the things that we found as a result of that study, and that was one of the first actual on-site inspections of agricultural land leases. And the report back was not good because we ended up having individuals, and Chamorros, of course, we would all be eligible for land trust property. But the agricultural land in particular, you had individuals who received acres and acres and acres of property, and in most cases were not compliant with the requirements of the land trust to properly actually use it for that very purpose. Some of them were multiplying jump cars, some of them were simply using it for residential housing, some were under the impression that they receive this land trust acreage, that it's something they get to subdivide among their children as if it's regular private property. I don't know that much has changed since then, because maybe there have been improvements. But that's the concern I have. There are many, many, many Chamorros, those that are descendants of our Chamorro people, that will never have land trust property. Even though they may be eligible for all the categories, the time's going to come. It's a finite resource, and as you know in your work in real estate, there's only so much to go around. There's going to be a generation or two down, may not be, as we continue to, even though we don't have families like my grandfather's generation had 10, 12, 13, 14 siblings that will have land trust property. So there's an expectation certainly that those that have and have the privilege of having land trust property comply with the policies and requirements for the use of that property. Because as you know, buying property on Guam now, if you don't inherit it, and even if you do, sometimes there are complications with how land gets divided and disagreements among families, and you know all those issues. But it's very expensive. It's very expensive to buy a quarter acre of property to even build, or get a 100 lot and build your single family home on it. And so that's something I definitely think that is needed. I think there's a need, as I've mentioned in the past at previous hearings, to rebuild confidence back in the land trust, that it's used for its intended purpose. Because sometimes when you receive something, you don't put any effort in, you don't maybe save for many years. I did. I bought the property that I'm sitting on, even though I anticipate one day receiving my inherited family property if my mom chooses to pass it on to me. But you can spend many, many years of your life saving and sacrificing. And, it's like your parents teach you, when you work for something, you value it. When you don't and it's given to you, you take it for granted. And we see that with a lot of our children sometimes. They don't have to work as hard for what they have, and they feel entitled to it, and they don't make the effort because they didn't have to sacrifice. A lot like our parents and our grandparents' generation that really didn't have as much in material things. Now, we have more material things we want to add on the storage because we don't know where to put it all. And so I would hope that in your capacity, and certainly to Commissioner Santos, that's something you continue to do in all fairness, because like I said, many Chamorros will never have this opportunity. But I certainly as a policymaker have an expectation that those that have been fortunate comply with the requirements, particularly the agricultural land leases, because there has been such flagrant abuse. There's been flagrant abuse with employees of the land trust in the past that have used their official positions to abuse the land trust, to make sure that they and their immediate family members receive land trust properties. I'm sure as time goes on, if you haven't found them, you will find them, or making sure they get the most prime property I know we all heard a few years ago the issue of Barragata Heights, but there's other prime properties. Oh my goodness, why is it that that staffer at the CHamoru Land Trust, it's their daughter who got the beachfront property? It's those type of things that raise a lot of question, and you know, when you see the misuse, abuse, and corruption of it, when you find out many that, you know, since 1995 that were in the line, how come everybody that wasn't in the line, how come they got it? How come you have families that they're 5 or 6 siblings in a row have land trust property adjacent to their private lands? I didn't know you can make to order. You know, like the drive-through, make to order my land trust land and where I get to get it. So when things like that happen, and they have happened, and there's evidence of that, you know, there's a long road to go, in my view, to rebuild that sense of confidence, to make sure that these lands are not misused, and that they're used for their intended purpose, and that there's compliance for that. And I hope that in your work and your expertise and what you bring to the table, that you can contribute to getting things back on track, and also with the existing commission members, that where there, you know, there's that injustice and misuse of the land, that it's corrected, and that you expect compliance. I mean, I don't expect you to throw people off the land, but, you know, I think you need to give them an opportunity to address compliance. If they don't, there should be consequences to that, because there's just too much abuse in the history of the land trust that just gives distrust, myself included, and members of the public, to how the land trust is being administered. Also with commercial properties, there's sometimes the view that when you're dealing with the government of Guam, maybe the government may catch up with you at some point. But one of the challenges we had at the time when the land trust started to ask us to look at commercial leases was the lack of ensuring proper payment to the land trust. I mean, there might be even strips of land on the side of the road that don't even think anything, but they're easements that commercial businesses have had an interest in. And they were not up to speed in paying what they owed to the land trust. Of course, the golf course up in Garrido was that had a long history of not consistently paying. I hope they're up to speed with regards to that. But that's just examples. Or those that have commercial interests that want to use and misuse land trust property. So in all fairness, I mean, that's going to be an important part of your role sitting on the Land Trust Commission, to help address those issues so that we do get to a point that there's some sense of confidence in how the land trust is being administered, and that's administered fairly, that people are being treated fairly, but also, if they're not in compliance, that there needs to be consequence to that and action that needs to be taken to address correction to it. And if not, you know, I'm not one of those that are going to sit and coddle. I'm like saying, well, at some point, if you've been given an opportunity once, twice, 3 times, I'm not here for a 4th. Because that abuse is so flagrant and it's been in place for so many years, you know, at some point you say enough is enough. I mean, I served with your brother when he came into the legislature, and certainly Speaker Terlaje for many years also worked with him as legal counsel in the Guam legislature. And certainly we know his passion and his fight, and all the way down to the very first, before he was senator, protesting to get the land trust implemented. Certainly all the time that was spent at Adelup on the grounds of Adelup when Governor Addo was in office. So we understand the fight. But not everyone takes to heart the passion that's there and the sense of moral responsibility. You know, we can talk about it, but doing it and following through is a total different dynamic. And I'm not here to lecture you. I know it may sound that way, but I'm simply bringing to light, because of my own awareness and hands-on experience of seeing and hearing and knowing this type of abuse that has existed. There has to be confidence in the operations of the staff of the land trust to make sure that ethically they are not misusing and abusing their positions, because there are those that came before them that thought nothing of it. Just absolute no reservation whatsoever in abusing this resource that it was intended for the use of our people. So I hope you're mindful with that. I hope it doesn't make you not want to serve. I hope it makes you want to serve even more, so that these issues can be properly addressed and we can collectively move on and ensure that the intended purpose of the land trust is truly put in place. So I don't have any questions with you, Mr. Garrido. I've read all the written testimonies that have been submitted, and knowing your background and the credit that's being brought to you, certainly for all those who are here, including Mr. Mike Brown, who I also have a long history with and served with during the Adabla's administration as a fellow cabinet member. I wish you well, but I just hope that you're able, in the authority that now you will possess, because I don't doubt the legislature will confirm your confirmation, that you will help address those issues and get the land trust on track of where it needs to be in service to our people.
Well, Senator, there's a truism in our computer industry where it's FIFO, and that stands for first in, first out. So that aligns with what you're saying is we'll process them from when they start and until they achieve what they requested. But also with computers, there's either the logic behind computers is based on algebra, and in binary algebra, there's only zeros and ones. There's nothing more but zeros and ones, and everything is a combination of zeros and ones going into the right files and folders. So I intend to try and follow your advice, following the rules, following the law. I'm not one to circumvent, all right, but I do approach things cautiously. I don't take things for granted because, first of all, I'm new. This is going to be a whole new experience for me. And until I'm comfortable with that, I'll be very cautious as to what I commit to. And hopefully I'm around for a few more years so that we can see a resolution to this, because I know it's been an ongoing problem, the problems that they're facing, and I know there was lawsuits. So that being said, we have to start from somewhere, okay, and then try and find solutions to move forward the correct way.
Well, Mr. Garrido, I'm sure I appreciate your views and what you're looking forward to. We're looking forward to it. I think it's very refreshing. I think having new eyes looking at the situation will be helpful to your existing commission members. But again, there's just an expectation that the Land Trust needs to get back on track. I mean, and I don't doubt work has been done since then. But you know, if you're not doing regular inspections, and I doubt that's happening, there's just a part in the back of my mind that's, you know, that big question mark, because a lot of time and effort needs to go in there. I don't know if your existing staff can do it, or can you contract it, which is what happened in the past. You know, interim, you don't need to have a whole staff all year round, but if you can contract it out again, either through the university or other processes you may have, so that on a regular basis you can ensure that. Because we have a lot of good people who appreciate and value themselves, their history and their heritage, and value the land. That's a fleeting thing. Not as many people now value land in the same way, because we don't live off the land as directly, right? We go to the supermarket in our air-conditioned cars. We're not out there, you know, at high noon, you know, with our fascinias planting our corn. Maybe Ernie Wistick is, but the rest of us are not, right? But it needs to be right-sized, and there needs to be that confidence. And it's also by our people that are waiting, that are still, and I know the speaker is, you know, she's articulated this over and over and over again, that many people out there are still waiting. And when they see others that walk to the head of the line because of who they are, their political connections, that's very discouraging, because some have so much and then they abuse it, and then those who have almost nothing are left behind. And that's just something wrong with that equation. I think we all find discomfort when we see and look at that. And like I said, I'm sure you do well. I welcome your new eyes of looking at these issues. Hopefully you will be in a position of making decisions to get things back in order, so that our community has, even those that are not eligible, want to make sure that things are being done properly, right? Especially when it's public resource and public asset, that certain people get to benefit that others don't.
Well, as a licensed realtor, I'm licensed with GAR and also with NAR. NAR is the National Association of Realtors. We're bound to a code of ethics and to abide by the rule of law. So I bring that with me wherever I go, and I'll bring it with me into commission if I'm accepted.
Well, you certainly have my support, and I'm sure you have the support of all those of us that are here today, Mr. Garrido. So we wish you well, and again, thank you for stepping up to the plate, because we need good people to do good things, and we're looking forward to the work that you'll do with the Commission. With that, Madam Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to ask questions and comment.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown. Mr. Garrido, I'd like to ask you some questions, if you don't mind. And first of all, I want to thank you again for your willingness to serve. I want to thank those who've testified on your behalf, and with great optimism. and those who've sent in written testimony with the same and attesting to your experience and your fresh eyes on this. I do appreciate and welcome. And you do have an impressive background, and I'm hoping that what you've described, these attention to details, right? The methodology that you've used in other practices may be applicable here. In particular, as you said, the truism, you keep working on it until it's completed. Of course, that's it's going to go towards our, as the acting chair has stated, I like that phrase, it's restoring trust to the land trust. But restoring trust is a huge part of it, right? We want our commissioners to do that. We want them to represent the best of our community and the ethics so that we are going to trust this trust. It is holding the most valuable assets of our government besides people. It is holding the land, and it's holding the bulk of the land on Guam, I would say. And you as a realtor, I'm sure, are very aware of this. And some of the issues that I've seen over the years are, in regards to the land, are the valuation of it, right? So the valuation of the land is important when we go into commercial licensing, right? So commercial licensing under the CHamoru Land Trust is supposed to be reserved for those instances where the commission feels the land is not needed for residential or agricultural purposes. That's a very unique caveat because we've got thousands of people still waiting for residential leases alone, right? And so, in my mind, how do you say you don't need any piece of land for residential leases if you've got thousands of people still waiting for residential leases, right? So that criteria, I want to ask you if you're willing to uphold that as the criteria, that commercial licenses are if that land is not needed for residential purposes.
That's a very difficult question, Senator. I would summarize it as a time and a place. If there's a great revenue that could be streamed from a commercial lease, I would be prone to look at it carefully, but at the end of the day, I would say I would try and endorse it. Because I know that the CHamoru Land Trust is in need of financial stability, so you have to balance the good and the bad and something like that. And I can't really give you a yes or no answer in that. It would just be dependent on the time and the circumstances.
All right. I just want to ask you to consider that if the pursuit of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission was money, then it should be leasing all of its property, right? And it should be dedicating 90% of its time towards commercial licenses and leases and pursuing those. But I find my reading of all the statutes, it makes it clear over and over and over again that that is not the primary goal. Of course, it has to operate, but its primary goal is those residential leases. And so that's what I just want to make a point about that, I guess, and I hope that you will, on consideration, share that goal as well. The under the commercial licenses, a lot of these in the past, and what I would really hope, and this is my urging to you as a new commission member and to all the existing members, is that we have to move forward. We have many errors, as my colleague pointed out in the past, mistakes, wrongdoings even. But right now, I think we have a commission with the best of intentions, and they are, and we have an acting director, and we, everyone wants to move forward, and I say move forward. I say don't get bogged down in the past. Those things have to be fixed, but they can't prevent us from moving forward currently with leases. I would like to, their budget hearing is coming up. I want to ask them again, like I asked them last year, with this budget, how many residential leases can you expect to give out this year, right? To how many surveys, how many land registrations, because that's where it begins, how many surveys and how many subdivisions can we acquire with this budget this year? And so that's when the money becomes a problem, right? If you don't have enough to conduct your surveys or to bring in water, as you said, as is necessary to provide a residential lease, it's not required in the statute, but we've seen from our mistakes in the past that giving land without giving water is really not doing anyone a service or justice, and it's actually creating additional problems. We're creating problems for our aquifer. We are creating problems of illegal dumping. We're creating problems where people cannot utilize the land and it sits dormant. These people continue to not have adequate housing, and that's the whole goal, is to give them a place so that we can lift housing, not to create poverty areas or to, perpetuate that. I don't want to perpetuate that. So I really want to urge you to keep that big picture in mind, that while we have to dedicate some resources to correcting errors of the past, our goal now is to issue residential leases. We know the most efficient way to do this. They've studied this. They have proposals that if we can divide the property up smaller, we can issue more leases. Simple as that. In order to divide these properties up smaller, those that are suitable for residential leases, we need to provide water. If we can bring the water in, if we can bring in the sewer, in fact, we can divide the properties smaller. And so, it's kind of a trade-off there. But we have opportunities now that we did not have in the past. We have ARP money, and we have infrastructure money, and we have some commitment from GWA to assist with their federal funds to bring in some infrastructure to these large tracts of land so that we may utilize them for residential purposes, and that all the adjacent areas can also hopefully tie in to become customers of GWA, GPA, and to become, they're business owners as well, properties. But so anyways, win-win is what we're looking for. And we just have to keep our eyes on that, I'm hoping, and urge that to move as quickly as possible. A lot of the commission recently in its meeting, they addressed, I was so glad to see them addressing their strategic plan, the big picture, right? And they gave an update on the progress of their processes, their information technology, integrity of the programs, accountability. But for me, most importantly, the registration of property, the surveying of property, bringing in the infrastructure to these properties. And frankly, I would like to see that at every meeting. I would like to see that over and over again, that you remind everybody that we are trying to issue these residential leases and that we are actually issuing those residential leases. And we're doing it, in the most efficient way possible, the sanitary way, just with what we've learned. We've learned so much, right? And so I want to urge you that I think some of the issues, there's a lot of vying for commercial licenses or leases with the trust. I don't think the trust has, they've done a little bit. They've designated a few properties for commercial license, right? But the trust has been so busy over the years, not just this group of members, but over the years, so busy that they haven't had a lot of time to dedicate to, which of our properties should we lease out? Which of our properties is not needed for residential purposes? And I believe that those two things can merge, that you can find properties that are not suitable for residential use, thus not needed, and that those are the ones that you try to license out. Those, for example, submerged lands. I felt very comfortable assisting the CHamoru Land Trust to commercially license or lease out submerged lands, because right now we're not seeing any practical residential use of submerged lands, right? Maybe in the future, but right now not. And same thing with agriculture. It still allows them to have agricultural use of other submerged lands, right? But for example, but if we can find these terrestrial lands that are not needed for residential purposes, not those ideal for residential, that we need so desperately, those are not the ones I'm hoping that we are going to prioritize in licensing. But revenue is important, and so valuation of that is important. In the past, we've seen it's normally the private entities that come in and say, I need this property, can I lease it from you? This is how much I'm willing to pay, and then they negotiate. But I haven't found that to necessarily come out with the best use of that property. So I'm hoping that all of you together can focus on that if you do decide to lease a property, right? And I want to ask you, so in that regard, I think some of the hardest things to do on Guam is when we are working for the government, we work in these agencies or in our capacity, you and as a commission member, me as a policymaker, we're friends with everybody. And when our friends come in and they're the ones who want these things, how do you think you can deal with that? There's a fine line between trying to be objective and special favors versus this is just a good idea for the government, right? And how do you handle those things, Mr. Garrido? How do you handle that, or how have you had an experience like that in your years with GPA or your years on the Equalization Board, or how do you expect to handle that at the CHamoru Land Trust?
I would defer to the rules and regulation that governs the assignments and the land trust objectives, because like you said, we don't want to see people cutting into line. We don't want to see favoritism. We want to level the playing field. Like you said, the ills of the past have happened. We can resolve that later or as time goes by, but we got to start with a clean slate and move forward. And yes, I agree that the residential lots should be the primary concern. And the sizes of the residential lot also is determined by the infrastructure that's in place. Because if you don't have sewer, especially up in the northern area, the minimum size for a lot is a half acre. If you have a sewer system on the property, you can cut it down to quarter acres. So the rule of law will apply. I mean, yes, you have friends, you have paris, malis, and stuff like that, but my hands are tied. I have to follow the rule of law, and ethics will prevent me from trying to circumvent.
All right. The other pressure is political pressure.
Well, same will hold true for political pressure. I mean, I won't do something that I know is not correct.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Garrido, for those honest answers. And I agree with you about the size of the lots. That's what I'm talking about, and that's what we've been discussing with this director and the commissioners. So the goal is they've identified tracts of land. So they've prioritized these tracts. These are good for residential. We can subdivide these. We would like to subdivide them smaller if we can bring in the sewer. Otherwise, we're going to divide them as to the, the larger size of lots. I am pushing them to divide them smaller. I'm trying to do everything we can to bring that sewer in. Hopefully, if these submerged cable licenses go through, they're going to have some additional money because I added sewer infrastructure as a approved use of those funds, those lease payments, so that we can bring sewer in, and hopefully those leases that we start to see some income from them, so that can be going towards that. In addition, they've been working grants, they've been trying to work all other sources, and I really want you to help me focus to continue to work with GWA, to continue to work with the Governor's Office for ARP funds, to continue to work with the newly established infrastructure office for that infrastructure funds. This could have been a more critical use of infrastructure funds and bringing in water and sewer in order to grow housing on Guam. You're a realtor. You can tell me probably more the crisis we are seeing in housing. And so I hope you bring that to the board, right? And impress upon them at every meeting that housing cannot wait for months and months and months. We will lose these people. We will lose our people to other states because they cannot bring that even housing to their own families. That's what we are seeing. That's the crisis I feel like we are having. And so I noticed that at their next meeting, the trust is going to be, addressing some of the other things, a lot of administrative things, but one of them is the eligible beneficiary process. It's determining whether someone's eligible or not. And when we made the settlement, I just want to tell you this directly, that when the government of Guam settled that lawsuit, it agreed that we were going to rewrite the eligibility a certain way. But the intent of that was to expand eligibility, not decrease eligibility, but expand it. And in no way was it intended to make it more cumbersome or take longer for these people to be deemed eligible. So the criteria is, if your family had owned or was using or occupying property on Guam that was taken, then you are eligible. You don't have to have owned it, and so pretty much they need to trace whether they had their parents or grandparents or themselves were living here when the lands were taken, and we're talking about after the war. They just have to trace back that far. And it doesn't have to be a formal, cumbersome proceeding. And in fact, that's why we created that affidavit process. The settlement allowed that affidavits, they would attest to those facts. And so I just want to ask you directly to please, if you are confirmed, to please use your abilities to make that process as easy as possible, because that was the intent. And we should take their affidavits as evidence. That's what was anticipated in that settlement. All right. And all right. Oh, if I could just ask you, so do you have any continuing business or other conflicts of interest? Do you think any of your continuing business, or you used to have a real estate license?
Yes, I have a
Does
real
any
estate.
of that, do you think, might affect your ability to perform your duties or present a conflict of interest?
Well, as a realtor, I don't get involved in there's no selling of land or working a lease. So as a realtor, I don't think I feel I don't have a conflict to participate and take part of the board. It gave me a lot of insights into what needs to be done or what should be done, because like you mentioned submerged lands. That's under the domain of the Army Corps of Engineers before anybody can touch it.
That's right, it has to be permitted, yeah.
Yeah.
And the, all right, what about, do you have any other businesses?
Pardon?
Any other businesses?
No.
Okay.
No.
You're able to attend the meetings? They
Yes.
have these long meetings, this commission,
Yes, you informed me about that before.
right? And then, all right, they're also supposed to, they have other mandates, right? Besides the leasing, they're supposed to be developing a home loan fund, home development fund, education fund, commercial loan fund, and home repair fund, right? And that's in anticipation of actual thriving subdivisions and where we are able to, provide these services as well. The goal and vision of this commission, I don't think we have fulfilled at all. We're not close yet, but because it's such a beautiful vision that was set out, but I do think it's possible, and I'm hoping that with this commission, we are going to make great strides in that regard. You're familiar with, there's a resolution that was passed by the Commission 2020-02 that sets out 17 principles. I think those 17 principles developed kind of like a lessons learned, right? Because they had, that commission that adopted that resolution had been the commission that dealt with the huge, I want to say implosion that occurred there over the years, several years ago, where they found out that when they did an assessment, when some problems came to light, and then they had to do an entire assessment of all the leases, how many were out of order, how many had skipped the line, that type of thing. That work was done. It's huge amounts of work. They did it, they've assessed it, they've made lists, and then they came up with these principles, kind of, I think, based a lot on that work that they had to go through, and it was very painful for all of us. It was painful to watch, painful to hear, painful to feel, because it was like our dream, this beautiful mission had not come to fruition. It was worse. It was really the source of a lot of bad feelings, right? That we had done wrong, or we hadn't done it right. We hadn't done it well. And I think we can do it better. I think that's how we should go forward. We can definitely do it better. Let's keep doing it better every day. But have you read that resolution? Are you familiar with the principles involved there? There were 17 principles. I think I sent this to you.
I'm not well versed on it,
Yeah.
Senator, but I did quickly glance at it.
Okay. If you could take a good look at it, I'd like to get
I-
your
I-
assurance that you agree pretty much with these, or if there's any you have issue with, I'd like to know which ones. And then, all right. So what do you, at this point, I know you said you're new and you're going to be cautious as you move forward, but at this point, what do you see to be the biggest issue facing the trust?
Actually, there's quite a few biggest issues. It's not just one single issue. We need to get on the ball and start pumping out the residential leases, and followed closely by agricultural, because I know that the land trust is years and years and maybe decades behind in assigning the homestead leases. So I would make that my first priority, and then on sidebars, try and reevaluate what had gone wrong in the past and see if we can be remedied or make it null and void. There's so much so much to look at and so much to try and find a resolution for. But like learning to walk, baby steps first, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. One of the other issues that's brought up in some of the public hearings recently has been, like you said, regulating the use of the land. That's one of the issues my colleagues brought up. That has to be done. It's a matter of how much time and resources are you going to dedicate to that? Who can you partner with to help you regulate? Are there any other things we can do? For example, the illegal dumping. A lot of it is being done on our CHamoru Land Trust properties because there's no people on that property. Or you know, we've put out some leases. It's, you know, they're isolated properties. Yeah, is there anything we can do that's more cost efficient? For example, putting up temporary fencing, you know, if we can't lease it out right away, otherwise lease it out, right? I don't know, but that's going to be, it's one of the issues that you have to solve, but I'm just putting that on the record as well, that is a growing concern in the community, that the illegal dumping is occurring there. What can the commission do? I'm feeling like you can definitely partner with other agencies, assist them. The Parks and Rec got a grant or DOI funds that they're going to be using to put up cameras in their parks. I know that EPA has said cameras are not that efficient for them because the cameras get stolen or damaged, but I would just urge you to continue to find solutions because, yeah, our idle lands are creating problems as well, right? And so, on top of everything else that you have to do, yeah, if you could take a look, partner with those. And I know we're partnering with Guam Housing, trying to get Guam Housing loan assistance for those who are on the CHamoru Land Trust property, veterans especially. So yeah, everything that we can not reinvent the wheel, but share that wheel with others, I think would be great. So again, I want to thank you for your willingness to do this. I want to thank you, those who've testified again, and for your work, Madam Chair, Director, and Mr. Garrido. So we look forward to your work on this commission. And I wanted to ask one more thing. So, wait a minute. Thank you. So the testimony, one of the testimonies that came in was from the former Governor Carl Gutierrez, and he gave a glowing recommendation for you. Hold on. One thing in there that struck me, and I wanted to just ask you, so you were advising him during his tenure as governor on different things, of course.
No, I was not an active.
Not a formal advisor, maybe.
Huh?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was not active when Carl Gutierrez was governor. I was a classified employee.
Right. No, he said advising on.
Oh no, that was
on infrastructure.
That was at the beginning of the Leon Guerrero administration because he was head of EDNA.
Oh, I see.
He was head of EDNA, so we would have talks and stuff like that. He would invite me to sit in when there were investors coming over to Guam to see if they can set up shop.
Oh, okay. All right, I was going to ask you because in addition to discussion about, he said, economic infrastructure and other items, also the discussion must have come up about the need for boat ramps on the eastern side.
Yes.
That's been a long-standing problem. Every time, I remember when I first became a senator and we looked into that, it sounded like they were going to settle that. I even remember going to hearings in Inarajan. I thought that was settled, and now I'm not sure where that is. But anyways, I'm just curious, how that comes up in your discussions or your capacity.
The Inarajan
Are you a
ramp,
fisherman?
the Inarajan boat ramp was built by GPA, but don't blame me for it, okay? But
yeah, the one that's not usable right now.
The one that's broken.
Yeah.
Okay, it was poorly designed. All right.
Yeah.
Now, if there's an emergency in the eastern side of the island,
Right.
the only way to access to try and rescue people would be coming out of Boat Basin, going around Patty to access the eastern,
Right.
or from Mauricio or Agate Harbor. So there's nothing in the east.
Right. No,
That's
that's correct.
At least
That's the
for
problem.
emergency
Yeah.
use, there should be a boat ramp
There
somewhere
should
in
be,
the
yes,
east.
okay. I just was curious if you were a fisherman or had any
I
other
am a
person.
fisherman.
Okay. Anyways, good, because that's one thing too, in regards to these submerged lands that we've been discussing for the past several months. In leasing submerged lands, where those cables come through is very important. And I also think that CHamoru Land Trust should look at its terrestrial sites, which ones they might own that are coastline, and see if they're not suitable for residential purposes or not needed for residential purposes, if there are other potential uses for those. All right, you've got your hands full, I know, and I want to thank all of you for being here today and for your input. All right, so there being no further testimony, we will conclude this hearing, and the confirmation hearing is adjourned. It is 12:40. 12:40. Si todos más, si todos. Thank you, Mr. Garrido.